Yo, so
Well, Jonathan Kahn. What's
so
this
good to be
about?
alive. I've mentioned Jonathan
It
Kahn a
is.
few times. Have you ever watched Jonathan
I
Kahn?
have. My
Okay,
mama absolutely loves him.
she did. And back when that's so funny, man. My mother-in-law is what 83 now.
She'll be
She
84 in
she
February.
used to always talk about Jonathan Kahn. I just thought she was a. I thought at the time when she was talking like that, I thought she was a religious nut. And at the time, until my relationship with God changed, and my eyes start opening up. I'm like, okay, I see what she's talking about. So on this, man, it's two people it's one person I watch particularly. It's another person I watch at times, and also I have his book, and I talk about him all the time. It's Jonathan Kahn, and the other next to him is Troy Black, and he talks about prophetic things. But this one is talking about Donald Trump is fulfilling a biblical prophetic parallel, and it's been said since his first term on that this is a prophetic act that's happening, and maybe this second version is a huge one, another huge one, on the spiritual side that's being done. So let's see, man. So
Let's
it got
see.
Troy Black and Jonathan Kahn. I want to see this interview, and I want y'all to stick with me. I want everybody to tune in and watch.
What does this mystery have to do with Donald Trump and the events that took place on January 6th on Capitol Hill?
Behind the leaders of our time and events of our time, there are actually prototypes in the Bible that they're following without knowing it. To set the stage, Donald Trump, the prototype he's following is that of a man called Jehu. Jehu was a man in the Bible who was wild, he was unpredictable, you never knew what he was going to say or do next. We don't know where he was with God.
See, that's one thing I love about Jonathan Kahn. He can relate everything. He can tie every situation back to a biblical reference.
Okay.
But God used him. Jehu begins a race to the throne, and as he goes to the throne, Jehu makes an alliance with the religious conservatives of his land. At one point, Jehu calls for people to come to an assembly in the capital city. And then the people of Jehu storm the Capitol building.
Wow.
Hey y'all, this is Troy Black. So I have Jonathan Kahn with me today, and he is going to be talking about an ancient mystery that he has just
Can you turn it down just a little bit?
described in detail in his new book, The Josiah Manifesto. So Jonathan, could you just start us out and maybe reveal a little bit about what this mystery is?
Yeah, it's in one hand, the Josiah Manifesto opens up many mysteries, and yet they all converge to then open up an answer. And that is, I would say, what if the Lord was showing us where we are prophetically and where we're heading and
Yep.
what we need to know
Yep.
for what is coming in the days ahead.
I keep telling
What if
you.
he was giving a blueprint from his word, but that's appointed for now, about how to stand, how to survive, how to thrive in what is coming in the days ahead, in the end times. That is what the Josiah Manifesto is going to open up. The subtitle is The Ancient Mystery and Guide for the End Times. And I've never written a book that has so much dealing with the answer or what to do specifically. Troy, many of the books that I've written or the mysteries I've dealt with are coming home and coming together in the Josiah Manifesto. And when they come together, they open up a key, which is the last part of it. The last third is, in a sense, the manifesto or the guide or the blueprint about what to do, about how to live, how to overcome, what we need to know for the end time. So I think it's one of the most important books I could have written.
Yeah, I agree. And you talk about what happened with the plague in America in 2020, but you also addressed a lot of other issues that were huge in the news in that year, that many people will remember immediately when you say them. But one of those is what happened on January 6th on Capitol Hill. What does this mystery have to do with Donald Trump and the events that took place there?
Yeah, this is, and you know it, Troy, because you read it, but this is, you see all these mysteries, but then they're all connected. They all come together. And
Right.
Right.
One of the books I'd written a few years ago was called The Paradigm. And things that from the paradigm after I wrote it have been coming true. And it was spoken of in the paradigm, but it came true after. So it's in the manifesto. And that is that behind the leaders of our time and events of our time, there are actually prototypes in the Bible that they're following without knowing it. And it's a prototype that has to do with when Israel was falling away from God, which you can link to America. And I will say just a few things to set the stage. Donald Trump, the prototype he's following without knowing it is that of a man called Jehu. Jehu was a man in the Bible who was wild. He was unpredictable. You never knew what he was going to say or do next. We don't know where he was with God, but God used him. And so, look
And that's the key. People get it so confused. God loves to use the person that you would deem unusable. God uses the person that he always hit you with God hit you with the aha. He always hit you with the, oh, you thought it was this way? I'm coming this way with this. So that everybody is going to look away from that because that's not what they think it's supposed to look like. And that's how it was with Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing him to Jesus, but that's how God works.
Yeah, Trump, unpredictable, wild, all that. But the Jehu then begins a race to the throne, and so does Donald Trump. And as he goes to the throne, Jehu makes an alliance with the religious conservatives of his land. So did Donald Trump. Now, this goes, if you go forward, there's so much to this. But when on January 6th, well, there is a prototype in the Bible. At one point, Jehu calls for people to come to an assembly in the capital city. So did Trump on January 6th. The people of Jehu end up surrounding a great Capitol building, the great Capitol temple building in the Capitol. They surround it. So on that day, and listen, I'm not condoning it, nothing. We're just giving revelation. The people of Trump surround our Capitol building. Then at one point, there are proceedings going on in that temple or that Capitol building of Jehu. And so with the Capitol building, proceedings going on. And then the people of Jehu storm the Capitol building. And so this is all linked to something. See, Jehu was the one who ends up pulling down the temple of Baal. The temple of Baal is where they're offering up children, as we're talking about this. Well, the modern day temple of Baal for America, through which we kill children, was Roe versus Wade. We killed 60 million children.
Right.
And so just by the paradigm, and this came, again, true after the book, years after the book, even after Trump's presidency, is that Trump, he walked in the footsteps of Jehu, was used to pull down Roe versus Wade. That was not an accident. And he did it by appointing 3 people. And one of those people, if you remember, that was Kavanaugh. And all hell broke loose on Capitol Hill when they were having the hearings because of the issue of abortion. And while that happened, a strange object appeared in Washington. And it appeared right in front of the Capitol building while the hearings are going on. And it was the Arch of Baal. The Arch of the Temple of Baal, which Jehu pulled down. It's now the battle. There's a spiritual battle going on regarding life in America. And this was linked to all these things. So even you have, we talked about the plague and the sin of abortion. And now we have a mystery leading to the overturning of the temple of abortion.
So while these events were happening in 2020, those who know Jesus for themselves, they have been covered by the blood of the Lamb. Things are passing by, in a sense, especially spiritually speaking. And even today, with the events that are happening in the world today, I think there's a lot of fear that can be raised, And another thing that you mentioned in the book specifically, you said the answer to fear is not the absence of evil, but the presence of God. See, just because the people were told to go into their homes, it doesn't mean the plague wasn't passing by. It was still there. But they were where God had them, and I believe that is what this manifesto is focused on, is where do we need to be as Christians in this day and age? So could you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's so many mysteries, and we touched on some, but there's more. But the thing is that they all converge, as we're talking about, and they converge to point to one single thing, and you won't forget it. If you look at the cover, this is the sign right here. This is an altar. The greatest, the most brazen altar we have in America has been that of Roe versus Wade, where we offer it up. We literally sacrificed 60 million children.
Wow.
Yet God moved all these things, and God literally broke that altar of Roe versus Wade. Yeah. It was the hand of God. I mean, you could see it. Yeah. It was the hand of God. And it happened, by the way, again, you had the 3 years of abortion at the beginning. You have the jubilee of that 3 years. And at the end, the last part, the altar is broken. Well, the broken altar is a biblical sign. It's a sign in the Bible again and again. It's one of the most powerful signs because it's a sign of change. It's a sign of actually revival. They didn't, when there was revival back then, the sign wasn't a tent meeting. It was the breaking of the altars of the gods. And by the way, Troy, a little kind of secret behind it is the last time I was on with you, we talked about the return of the gods. And the return of the gods speaks about the spirits and the gods and the altars. The day I finished the return of the gods, the day I finished it was June 24th. It was the day that God broke the altar of Roe versus Wade, of the gods, of all. And that's when he gave me, okay, now you're going to give my people an answer. Now I'm doing this. So the thing is that the sign of the broken altar points to one person in the Bible more than any other, and that's Josiah. because his birth was actually prophesied over a broken altar, when God actually broke an altar. And then his life was breaking the altars of the gods. In his time, there was evil. There was sexual immorality, there was abortion, there was gender confusion, and there were altars for all of them. They were linked to the gods, and he broke them down and led to revival. In the midst of all this evil, he brought revival. One man was used by God. And so that's where I said, oh, God, you are pointing us to something here, because it all points to the broken altar. That's the sign. And that points to Josiah. We are at the Josiah moment. And the Josiah moment, it was late when Josiah came into it. And the thing is that we are at a similar time where on one hand, we have a nation that is at war with God, in so many ways. And there's judgment on that one side of that. We're heading to judgment. On the other hand, there's the chance for revival. So it's either judgment, revival, or judgment. Without revival, America is lost. And so that's the Josiah moment. And so what's going to happen? And what do we need to do?
And that's what Prophet's talking about. He said, if this doesn't change, if America doesn't turn from their ways, it's irreversible, and it's it.
Because this is about the end times. You have all these things going on, as you said, but what do we do? And so I said, that's where Josiah comes in, because I said, Lord, I said, you had this Josiah as a sign to us, because Josiah prospered. Josiah was in the midst of all this evil, and yet he resisted it. He didn't just resist it. He actually overcame it. He actually affected it. He actually, one person changed the course of his nation. So the thing is that this is a real picture for now and a picture for the end times, because the point is there's so many things here. One is God is never finished. It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter if you live under persecution or you live in a place of apostasy. You've got a calling. Josiah didn't matter. Right. He didn't say, okay, it's so bad, I'm gonna go. No, he said, I have a job. God called me. He put me on earth for this hour.
Right.
And we are put on this earth for this hour. We are not to be afraid of the end times.
Right.
God put us here. So we have a job to do. And we can't be, if we're the light of the world, we can't be saying, oh, it's so dark, we better hide our light because they'll cancel us.
Yeah.
No, that's the time when you have to shine more.
Right.
That's when you've got your job. Yeah. That's why you're on earth, So the thing is that there's so many secrets, or what's the strategy of Josiah? What are the powers he had in God? What did he do? What were his practices? And because in that are how to overcome and to do what God called us to do. Not in fear, as you said. We are here for a purpose, but there's so many things in this about how to separate from the darkness, but also how to transform the darkness. What do you do if the government tells you you're going to have to bow down in some way? You're going to have to go against God. What do you do? What do you do in the end times? Because the thing is, God is never finished. We're on earth. We could have been in heaven right now. We're on earth because God has a purpose for us. We are to be part of the answer, no matter what age we live in. And so that's what I believe. So the last third of the book, as you said, and the last third is the manifesto, or the blueprint, or the guide about what do we do? How do we handle this? What do we deal with all these things that we are dealing with, that we're going to deal with? How do we do it and still overcome and be victorious as God has called it? Well, Josiah was, and we have to be for such a time as this.
Amen. Yeah, one of the things, I just want to read a quote from the book real fast, and I'm going to have you pray, and we're going to finish. But this is what you said on page 240. You said, if the righteous seek only to change the outward structures of culture, laws, institutions, and systems, their efforts will be undone. If one changes laws without changing hearts, the changed laws will be changed back by the unchanged hearts. And I believe you could be talking both about unbelievers, who need to meet the Lord, but also about believers' hearts. And I believe it starts with our hearts, right here, right now, making that decision in our hearts. It's just like the kids' song I sung to my young kids last night as they were going to bed. I'm going to let my little light shine. Like, I'm not going to hide it under a bushel. I'm going to be a city set on a hill, and I'm going to be shining the light of Jesus Christ to the world. That's a decision we have to make in our hearts. So could you pray for those who are...
And we're going to stop it right there.
Wow, that was really good. I really like Jonathan Cahn. He's so knowledgeable, and he's just speaks truth and facts.
Absolutely,
and that's real. I mean, that statement. What a great quote that Troy picked out of all the quotes picked. That was a great one, because you can change things all day, but it still is the heart of the man, and that's what God judges. He judges the heart of the man, and He judges our intention.
That's why,
and that comes from the heart.
And I just think about what he said, and that's the purpose that God has changed for us. That it went from, just being two people believing in Christ, doing what they do, to being two people that's supposed to spread the light of who Jesus Christ is. And it was at one time I was shy and nervous to even say Jesus Christ. I was kind of like, I don't want No.
But we all have our
It's the
stories
light.
of how we came to him.
Yeah.
You know, but it's those supernatural experiences is what makes it surreal.
Absolutely.
Because he is alive.
He is. All right, man. I thought that was a great one. I hope y'all go
Yeah.
check that out. Troy Black and Jonathan Kahn. Y'all can both look at them both. They have their channels. Y'all can go back and look at this interview as well. So with that, lead them to war, baby.
All right, great people. Definitely. If you don't know who God is, if you don't know who Christ is, now is the time. It is not too late. Seek and ye shall find. If you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel. Give us some feedback in the comments section. Let us know what else you want to see on these lines, and we'll definitely drop the video. Subscribe, share this video. Share this video, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.